This is the
legs. Quarterback's legs.
Fakes left, now taken off. Gonna run for it, he got it! And there he goes! Inside the 10, the 5. Oh, the play of the year in the NFL! Quarterback legs it was.
I said no spy on this play. I can't believe it. The rare mistake by Kansas City. There's times.
Hey guys, welcome back. Eric Smith here, 5 Reasons Sports contributor, also co-host of Scouting the Fins. You can find that one on the 5 Reasons YouTube and the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast feed. I've also started doing a new show called Focused on Fins with Anthony Testino. We've been recording those live on Wednesdays, so come check those out as well. Today we're going to look at, it's Week 13, Game 12 against the New Orleans Saints. And obviously it wasn't a pretty victory, but this isn't where we get into all of that. This is where we grade the offensive line and focus on their performance specifically. The big return for the offensive line this week was right tackle Austin Jackson, and he replaced Larry Borom in the starting lineup. As we get into the film portion of this video, we are going to add a little emphasis as to what Austin Jackson did in this game, but we're not going to make it exclusive to Austin Jackson. So with that out of the way, let's get into the grades for this week. The return of Austin Jackson this week means the Dolphins are no longer covering for 3 offensive linemen. They came into the season expecting to cover up for the rookie Jonas Savaiinaea, and they quickly had to cover up for the entire right side of the offensive line, being Cole Strange eventually and Larry Borom, with Austin Jackson replacing Larry Borom in the lineup. We still have Cole Strange that they are doing a lot of stuff to work around, and Jonah is starting to round into shape. But the result of that is that the grade this week was a 6.60 for the overall offensive line. And that is the best grade of the season. Kind of funny how that works when you start to get, 4 out of the 5 expected starters back in the lineup. We are closing in on Christmas. Maybe we get a Christmas miracle that we get James Daniels in there as well, and we can see the full line. But it is what it is for now, and this was their best performance of the year overall. In terms of things they did different this week, there was a change in the way the game was called with Austin Jackson. I kind of highlighted some of those on Twitter. One thing that I noticed the last few weeks, we've kind of highlighted a concept that they have ran to the right side, total of looks like 5 times this year, but they always ran it to the right. It was the fold concept. So this week with Austin Jackson returning, they ran that to the left for the first time, and it didn't hit for anything big. I think it was only like 2 yards, but it was just an indication that simply having Austin Jackson in the lineup is going to expand some of the stuff they can do with the playbook. And you can see that in the counts for outside zone as well. I don't think that they were necessarily as heavy going away from outside zone as, a lot of people seem to feel, but there was kind of a lean away from it, especially on the right side. Yesterday's game, they ran more outside zone to the right in any game except for the Bills game this season. So I think that we're going to continue to see that, but they also ran it more to the left as well. I charted a total of 16 run plays where they ran outside zone, and I think one of the plays we're going to get into in the film review is going to be one of those outside zones to the left where Austin Jackson on the right side still made a significant difference. So, just a interesting note on the way that having Austin Jackson in the lineup changes the way the run game can be called. As always, we are going to start out with our lowest graded offensive lineman of the week. And for this week, it was the rookie, Jonas Savaiinaea, coming in at a 4.73. And even though he is the lowest graded offensive lineman once again, this is a change up to see our lowest grade being just below that average grade of a 5.00. And I think every week before this, we had at least one player, whether it was Jonah, whether it was Cole Strange, whether it was Larry Borom, somebody's down in that 1 to 2 range in terms of the grades for the week. And this is something we've talked about several times, that as this line builds continuity, as they find their footing, that we hopefully start to see most of these grades being above average. And that's what we got this week. And that was a big reason why this was the highest graded game of the week. But specific to Jonah, this is a player that, really struggled early in the season. We would have 2, 3 plays every single game where he was just getting beat very badly, like clear 0 grades, to the point that, a lot of people were questioning whether or not he was the right pick there, especially trading up for him at 37, I think it was. But these last few weeks, we've seen him kind of stabilize, and that continued this week. Even though he's a little bit below average with his overall grade, when you look at the plays that he did not grade as a 1 on, there was only one play, which was a pass play where it was a half slide to the left, where Jonah graded as a 0. Every other grade that wasn't satisfactory, he at least got partial credit for. And there was more issues in the run game, especially going to his side, than anything else for this game. But it wasn't stuff where he was just getting beat clean. He wasn't giving up, free defenders for tackles for losses, stuff like that. So this is the type of stuff that you can continue to develop, continue to improve as the season moves on. And hopefully we, kind of see this 4.73, see that turn into the floor for Jonah's performances and start to see him grading a little more consistency above that 5.0 mark. But still, solid week for the rookie here. Our next lowest grade for the week is going to be left tackle Patrick Paul. And even though, again, this is the second lowest grade of the week, look at his season grade compared to where he was for this week. He's not that far below it. So this is kind of just emphasizing how well the line as a whole played, that Patrick Paul, who has had a very good season, is grading not far off from his season average, but is just below, or is coming in at, the second lowest grade of the week. In terms of stuff that he struggled with this week that kind of brought it down, the biggest thing were a couple of late game losses to Chase Young. So it was on the 10th and 11th drive of the game. And on both of those, I didn't mark him down with a full 0. I think that part of it came down to Chase Young just doing a really good job anticipating the snap count. He got off the ball quicker than anybody else on those 2 plays. And Patrick Paul, even though he took an L on both those plays, I think that if it was any other tackle on the roster and a lot of tackles across the league, you're probably looking at Chase Young being able to turn that corner a lot quicker than he did against Patrick Paul. So similar to Jonah, didn't have as many half credit negatives, and that's why he graded a good bit higher. But he only had one play that I had him marked with a flat 0, and that was on an outside zone to his left side. In terms of, where he struggled, there wasn't one specific place. I mean, there was an outside zone to the right, so he was on the back side. There was a pin and pull to the left where he, kind of struggled to seal his defender. Aaron Brewer had to help him. It was the 2 of them pulling. So got partial credit there. And then an outside zone to the left was the one where we got the 0. A couple of pass plays. So it wasn't anything, specific that Patrick Paul was struggling with. Just a few things that need to continue to be cleaned up. And, shouldn't be out of the realm of expectation for a second-year left tackle as well as he's been playing. I think that we're still looking at a player that is trending in the right direction. No concerns at all with this performance from Patrick Paul. I think it says more about the guys we're going to talk about next than it does about Patrick Paul that he came in where he did this week. Our next lowest graded player is going to be right tackle Austin Jackson. You can see that he came in at a 7.10. His 6.42 was just based on that first game performance against the Colts, so not a great baseline for him so far. But 2 games this season, 2 games above average. I think this is what we kind of expect out of Austin Jackson. He is a good right tackle when he is in the lineup. The problem with him has always just been being able to stay in that lineup. In terms of the performance this week, not a perfect performance by any means, but as we talked about earlier, just his presence changed what you're able to do in terms of play calling. He does still struggle in pass protection. His only 0 for the week was a half slide to his side where he got driven directly back into Tua. I think that's one that we're going to check out in the film review portion of it. The other ones that we had were all run plays. Outside zone to the right, counter solid to the right, and another outside zone to the right where there were where he at least got partial credit for those. But the caveat there, as we talked about with Larry Borom and Cole Strange, is that he got a lot of help in pass protection. Austin Jackson is a big boost in the run game, but there are still warts in terms of the way that he pass protects, and that shows up in the play calling there. In terms of half slide protection, so basically which way the center is going. So when we're doing a half slide to the right, Aaron Brewer, the center, is going to the right. He's got that right side A gap. The right guard, Cole Strange, has the right side B gap. And then Austin Jackson has everything outside of that. And, the benefit for a tackle like Austin Jackson or Larry Borom is they don't have to worry about the counter moves back to the inside because they should have the right guard there to pick it up. So when we talk about that, and the flip side of that, if you're on the opposite side of the slide, you're more of a one-on-one protection where you do need to worry about that defender having a two-way go. In this game, I charted 10 plays where they slid to Austin Jackson's side, so leaving Patrick Paul more on that island on the left side. And there was only 4 times where they did the half slide to the left, leaving Austin Jackson on more of an island. And there are ways to mitigate that as well, whether it's having a tight end on his side, having a running back chip there. I didn't track all of that, how often that happened when they were sliding away from Austin Jackson, but just the discrepancy in terms of the slide right protections just shows the team acknowledges and is willing to compensate for the issues that still exist with Austin Jackson in pass protection. So just something to keep in mind that even though he is grading better than Patrick Paul, he is also getting more help in the pass game than what Patrick Paul is. So as always, a lot of this stuff requires context, and it's why I look at every single play and not just whether somebody gave up sacks or not. Next up is going to be Cole Strange. He grades out very similarly to Austin Jackson, and his counts look very similar. So 7.19 for yesterday, almost double his season average of 3.42. But I think this is more of an indication of what it looks like when you're only trying to cover for one player. When you can surround a player like Cole Strange with an Aaron Brewer and an Austin Jackson, you can cover that player up a lot easier. I think that showed up in the run game where there were a few plays where if it was still Larry Borom playing beside Cole Strange, there was more of a stalemate there, and Cole Strange may have taken a partially negative grade for it, but having Austin Jackson in there and the displacement that Austin Jackson can create and the space that he creates with some of his blocks can kind of cover up some of the warts on a player like Cole Strange. But solid performance, what they asked Cole Strange to do, he did it well. Another player that only had one full negative graded play, that was on an outside zone run to the right. Cole Strange was actually pretty solid in pass protection, which has been kind of the biggest issue with him. But again, right, talked about the protection that Austin Jackson had in terms of the pass protection schemes. That applies to Cole Strange as well. Had him with 2 partially negative graded plays in the run game. One of those was a crack toss to the right, so wasn't able to get out there and seal that very well. And then there was also a wham block where Cole Strange did not get up to his linebacker. I think we're going to look at that one in the film review. And then the one partially negative graded play I had for him in the passing game was a screen pass, so not anything in traditional pass protection for Cole Strange. So solid performance this week, but again, always with context there. I don't think that we're seeing a player that is individually making a huge leap here. I think that we're seeing the guys around him, that personnel changing, the play calling changing, and being able to cover up Cole Strange more, right? And we talk about those slide right protections and how much that aided Strange in the passing game, and then we talk about the rookie on the other side. If we had James Daniels in there and we could slide to the left, I think we would probably, see Jonas' grade look a lot closer to Cole Strange than what we have here. But, just something to think about for the future, that when we can give Jonah that help, then I think that, we will see a much better grade, and we'll probably see a little less criticism of him because we're not, we're not setting him up to fail in a sense, which, is kind of what they've had to do to this point in the season. And then Finishing up the individual grades, our highest graded player of the week was Aaron Brewer, coming a little above his season average. This week's grade was a 7.96. Season average is a 6.96. I did not have Aaron Brewer with a single zero graded play. Little more issues in the pass game than the run game, but that is Aaron Brewer in a nutshell. And I think, if I remember correctly, the only play that I had him graded partially negative in the run game was actually more due to a poor snap than it was the blocking itself. I could be wrong there. I know there was at least one that I had marked him down for the snap more than the block. There was also I believe it was a sack that was given up that on Twitter originally I thought there would be a defensive hold there because Brewer was kind of late reacting to a stunt and not able to get to the backside A gap. Upon film review, there was no hold. Brewer was just late getting over there. Minor mistake. Don't see that often from Brewer, especially with his athleticism. He's usually able to get back over there and make those plays, but it did happen this week, so we mark him as a partially negative there, and we move on. But again, looking at the grades across the board here, like this is the type of performance that we need to be able to see on a more consistent basis. And this was the Saints. They were not a good team. So I'm not going to say that we should expect this the rest of the season. But if we want to be able to compete for the rest of the season and moving forward, these are what the grades should look like, right? We've got a few guys that are playing above their season average, and we don't have anybody that is just awful, right? Nobody down that 1 to 2 range. Our lowest graded player is Jonah at just below average, and that's how you get to the highest graded game of the season for this group. So encouraging. I expect another good performance next week against the Jets, and we'll see how it looks moving forward. But with all these grades out of the way, we are going to move over into the film review portion of this video. As we get into the film review portion, the play that we're going to look at here is a new concept that the Dolphins broke out this week. So this is going to be, it is a center and Y Wham block. And this is intended to look like a center and Y counter. So if we were running the counter, then basically we would get everybody blocking down here. Let me get the right color pen. So we're going to get everybody blocking down, the center pulling out, right? And then we're sealing. Brunskill's pulling through here, and we are there. That would be your center Y counter. Now the variation that we have here is going to be a center Y Wham. So now this is the key block in all of this. We're going to get Pat Paul is going to seal out here. We're going to get Jonas stepping down as if he's blocking that defensive tackle, but then he is climbing. Aaron Brewer is still pulling out the kick, making it look like that counter. Should have Cole Strange climbing to that linebacker, a seal there, and then we bring our Y, in this case Dan Brunskill, across, and we're trapping him here. We're going to get Waddle coming in from outside the screen for the safety. And in my opinion, I think Cole Strange kind of had a bit of a brain fart here. He starts to the outside before he climbs to seal the linebacker. But if we watch, as Wright is taking this handoff to the backside A gap, I think they were trying to create a lane there for him to get through. And obviously lots and lots of lines there, so we're going to clear it out and take a look at it. So as we talked about here, you see Aaron Brewer pulling to the outside. That defensive tackle is following him, right? Because that's what they should do, which is going to make the wham block for Dan Brunskill easy, right? The tackle basically takes himself out of the play. We see Jonah here climbing to get that linebacker. We got the seal there. And then if we watch Cole Strange here, you'll see what I was talking about, that Austin Jackson has the defensive end out here. Cole Strange steps out there where he should be climbing number 20 right away, right? Kind of your oh crap moment here. You see the head coming back around, right? And maybe you could argue that Wright could have hit it through that lane, but then, how do you expect Jonah to get there? And that's why, in my opinion, I feel that what was intended to happen here was for Cole Strange to take more of a vertical release here. And if Cole Strange seals number 20 out here, then what we're going to have as we see this develop is we can cut it back through here, and Wright can cut off of Waddle's block, and it could possibly be a big gain. But again, this was the first time they ran this concept this season, so I do think there is room for growth, something to keep an eye on as we move forward in the season. Next play we're going to have here is the long De'Von Achane touchdown run. And when people saw this on the broadcast, they were like, great blocking, great job, Julian Hill, right? Everything looked perfect. And when I went back and looked at it, I can't say that I agree completely. And we're going to take a look at this as we see our motions. And we're going to pause it. Right there's Alec Ingold. Then we are going to have Julian Hill coming in motion as well. And we're going to talk about what should have happened here and then what actually did happen. So this combination between the fullback and the Y is one that I'm trying to, I'm working on getting some more information on this. Going to have kind of tentative setup with a former NFL tight end to be able to discuss this more. But it's Julian Hill and Alec Ingold are basically comboing through this defensive end, and they are working up to number 56. Then you have Austin Jackson and Cole Strange should be comboing through this linebacker, but we see it more with the center, but we get a through call here where Cole Strange is climbing directly to number 20 and Austin Jackson is just sealing here, right? And then we're working up here. But what we end up seeing is that Julian Hill and Alec Ingold are not on the same page here because 96 ends up coming completely unblocked. What we end up getting is that Julian Hill gets out here to his outside and he leaves 96 go, and Alec Ingold leads directly up to number 56. And 96, like I said, ends up completely unblocked. Thankfully, De'Von Achane is able to, use an angle to defeat that block. But then, Julian Hill ends up right place, right time because Cole Strange is not able to get to number 20. So it really looks like a great block by Julian Hill where he first takes number 96 and then climbs up to number 20. But I'm not sure that he ever should have left number 96. And number 20 never should have been there for him to get. So let's take a look at this. And here you can see Julian Hill on the outside there, fitting to the outside. You've got Alec Ingold leading up 256. I'm pretty confident that Julian Hill was expecting Alec Ingold to fit in there because you can see that, he basically lets him go completely. And then if you look more to the inside here, you can see that Cole Strange is climbing to number 20. Tough angle to get there, right? But if you're going to make that through call, there is no excuse. You've got to get there. He doesn't get to number 20. So we get Alec Ingold picking up 56. Julian Hill lets go of 96. And then, like I said, right place, right time for Julian Hill. Piss poor effort here by the corner. And that's what gets Achane into the open field. So never going to give back a touchdown. But at the same time, when we go back and look at these, I don't like to just look at the touchdown and say, yeah, great play, right? He was basically untouched for, whatever it was, 40, 50 yards, or I guess about 30. I like to go back and see, did it actually hit the way that it was intended to hit? And this one did not, right? Ended up being Achane being able to, outrun 96, cut inside at number 1. So a lot of bad stuff by the defense here and stuff from the offense that we need to see continue to be cleaned up as we move forward. All right, this is going to be a kind of quick one. So this is a outside zone to the left. You can see the way that Ollie Gordon starts out to his left, and then he winds it back to the right. But the big key here is why he's able to wind it back to the right. So we're going to get motion that's going to bring 56 over. And what we're going to have on the backside is, we're not going to really look at the front side, is that Cole Strange and Austin Jackson are comboing through 93 up to 56. When we roll this play, I want you to look at how much movement Cole Strange gets on the defensive tackle. It's not that much, but the difference here going from Larry Borom to Austin Jackson is that Austin Jackson jacks him up, blows him back 5 yards, and they don't even have to leave the double team before they can eat up number 56 on this play. So here we go. More motion, snap of the ball, right? See how Cole Strange, right? We're still going kind of horizontal with that. We're not creating any kind of real vertical movement. But then we see Austin Jackson flying in, getting that movement, and pancaking that defensive tackle into the lap of number 56. And that's an ideal combo. Like, if you are hitting these combos correctly, you should never have to leave the double team portion of it, because you should be able to create the movement that puts him into the lap of the linebacker. And that's exactly what we get here. I know that number 56 gets in on the tackle, but now we're talking 9-10 yards down the field. But this is the type of thing that when you go from Larry Borom to Austin Jackson, now this play opens up big time. Whereas before, right, might not have had the movement here. Things get much more muddy in there. That defender that is getting cut maybe makes the play. Now we're able to get there, get through there, and get a nice little chunk gain out of it, just because we're getting that movement on the backside that we haven't had so far this year. This one is going to be a pin and pull concept to the right. And this seems to be something the Dolphins really want to be able to do, and they're just not that good at it. And I don't understand why. Obviously, Achane makes something out of nothing there, but in terms of the blocking, not a great job. This should be one of the more simple concepts in the NFL that you can run, and the Dolphins just, seem to struggle with it regularly. Now, they did come back the next play. They ran it to the left, and they were much more successful with it, but it feels like they're kind of setting up Cole Strange to fail on this one. So as we get back to the top, there's our motion. So now what's going to happen here is that these two are going to end up leaving this defensive end go. And then we're pinning with Austin Jackson. We're pulling with Cole Strange. We're pulling with Aaron Brewer. And we're trying to cut stuff off on the backside here. But both Aaron Brewer and De'Von Achane look very much like they are expecting this to fully be able to go to the outside. But when we don't block this defensive end, let me get the drawing pad back up there, right? If we don't block this defensive end and he gets upfield, like, that's a tough ask to ask Cole Strange to get all the way around and seal him. So what we're going to see instead is that Cole Strange tries to kick him out. And I think that's what should be happening here, right? I think that there should be a kick out there. Dan Brunskill has to be able to get this block on the linebacker, and that Aaron Brewer, instead of trying to continue this outside, should be cutting up through blocking number 20, and then we're following him inside. And maybe this is Aaron Brewer's fault, because Achane probably should be following his lead blocker the whole way through. But cannot expect Cole Strange to be able to loop around and be able to seal this defensive end here without bellying it back, 5-10 yards into the backfield. Would much rather see this kind of turn into almost like a buck sweep, where we're kicking out that defensive end and then turning up inside of it. So just wanted to include this because this is, a concept that Miami has tried to run throughout the year, and it's kind of been hit or miss, even though it should be something similar to the fold technique that they've run that pretty well, and similar ideas there in terms of angles, but they seem to be able to hit that a lot better than they do the pin and pull. And I'm not exactly sure what the disconnect is here, but if they do figure out how to hit this more consistently, I think it could be a really nice part of the offense with the athletes the Dolphins have up front. Next one we're going to look at here is a crack toss to the left. And this is one of the plays that Patrick Paul did not get, full credit for. Gets around the outside here with Dulcich. Gets a little tentative going around the edge. I don't know why he slowed down there as he was clearing Dulcich. I feel like he should have been a little more aggressive to the outside shoulder of that defender. But we see that Aaron Brewer has to get around here and clean it up, right? From here, would like to see Patrick Paul just continue to the outside so that Brewer can get all the way outside. Instead, Paul kind of grabs on, doesn't keep the feet going. Brewer does a great job cleaning it up. An example of where, not everything has to be perfect for a play to succeed, but room to improve on this one. But one of the things I want you to pay attention to here is what it looks like having Austin Jackson on the backside of this. So typically, we would try to get Cole Strange up to the next level. Austin Jackson trying to clear number or to seal, cut off, whatever you want to call it, number 90. But instead, because of how good of an athlete Austin Jackson is, we're not going to waste him on number 90. Now he is looping around, right? Essentially helping Jonah, who didn't do great on this play, and then working up to the next level. So we're talking about the right tackle starting all the way outside the hashes over here. And when this play ends, he has cleared almost everybody on the offense, getting all the way to the other side, right? And if this does get to the next level, then Austin Jackson's going to be downfield making a block. So again, right, not anything, not a highlight play by any means, but just kind of an emphasis of the kind of extra stuff you get when you go from an athlete like Larry Borum to an athlete like Austin Jackson, where there's just those, those hidden things in there that pop up that you lose when Austin Jackson's not in the lineup. Next play here is going to be that fold concept to the left. First time that they have run it to the left this season. They have run it to the right, pulling Aaron Brewer, pulling Patrick Paul, but they never pulled Larry Borum trying to run this to the left. So as we get back to the top, we will look at how this is supposed to look once the motion comes across. So they're pulling the linebackers over. And now what is supposed to happen here, very simple blocking concept. Flip over to the red pen. We're going to get Patrick Paul blocking to the outside. Jonah's trying to seal here. Brewer is looping through to that linebacker, get a seal here, and loop through to this linebacker. And then ideally, this is going to hit through the B gap. What we're going to end up seeing is that Jonah starts in a good position, and I think that's what Ollie is reading, but this defender is able to scrape over the top late. Would like to see Ollie have a little better vision to be able to see that late and be able to cut back under Austin Jackson here, but it doesn't happen. But again, as you can see Jonah is in good position. That's what Ollie is reading. He's trying to follow Aaron Brewer, but then this defender scrapes over the top. At this point, would like to be able to see Ollie recognize this because this is, off of the outside zone tree. So he should still be reading these blocks, seeing all of these defenders have outside leverage and cutting it back, right? And this could be a huge gain if he gets there. He doesn't. But like I said, the reason I wanted to highlight wasn't the result of the play or calling out Ollie's, lack of vision there. The main thing was that we're unlocking parts of the playbook that weren't available with Larry Borum in the lineup. This is a play that they ran it to the right. I think it was 5 times so far this year. First time running it to the left, and something to keep an eye on going forward, right? This has popped big for the Dolphins a couple times this year going to the right. I think we're going to see it, hit big at some point here in the near future going to the left as well. Next play we're going to have here is a outside zone to the right. And I didn't want this to be, just everything is good for Austin Jackson. This is a play that was not good for Austin Jackson, but one that I'm not too concerned about, right? We are asking Austin Jackson to combo block with Julian Hill, who, as you can see here, is on the left side. Hill is going to come into motion as the ball is snapped. And, we're expecting Jackson and Hill to be on the same page in terms of what they're doing here. And the Saints walk up that cornerback number 1 kind of late. And with Hill on the opposite side of the formation right now, there's no way, right here comes the corner. Soon, there he is, right? So now that corner's there, the picture changes for Austin Jackson, but he has no way to communicate to Julian Hill what's changing here, right? So as the ball snapped here, looking at the numbers, we're not in a good position here, right? We're going to get Alec Ingold's going in split flow. So we've got 1, 2, 3 to the front side. The combo is going to be up to there, right? But the Saints have 4 defenders over here. So somebody is going to end up unblocked. We need to make that the corner, right? If you have an unblocked defender, you want it to be the corner rather than a defensive end, a defensive tackle, or a linebacker. But what we're going to get here is that Austin Jackson looks like he is still committing to the initial combo block here, right? They're both committing there initially, but then we're going to see Julian Hill is working out to the cornerback, and Austin Jackson is a little bit late peeling back to number 56, right? And then we're getting a block there as well. But I think that the biggest issue here is a lack of time on task here from Jackson and Hill, right? If Hill just stays on that and Jackson peels back, right? Now we're hitting in a lane through there, but you can see that Julian Hill kind of continues to the outside as if he expects Austin Jackson to continue widening this, right? Maybe he being Julian Hill expected Strange and Brewer to try to combo up to create a cutback lane there. Obviously didn't happen that way, but this is just, again, not a huge red flag by any means, but an example of a play where when they see this on film, they're going to figure out how they want to handle this. It definitely wasn't the way this was handled, but they're going to figure out how they want to handle this and fix this in the future. But when you have a new piece coming back into the offensive line, these are the kind of, even though it looks like they're getting beat physically, I think this was much more a communication issue than it was either of these players just physically losing their matchups. And then this one was Tua getting sacked. And there was several times in this game where Tua was either pressured or sacked, and I did not blame the offensive line for it. On this one, I actually tweeted that I thought that we would see that on the twist here that number 93 would be holding Aaron Brewer and preventing him from, getting back to that backside. But we watch his right arm, right? He's kind of hooking Brewer's arm, but not nearly enough to slow Brewer down. So in this case, I feel this was definitely an offensive line sack, and specifically on Aaron Brewer. Again, not a big red flag, not something we see very often from Brewer, but just one that I wanted to include in the film review here because I did see it differently live. And now that I'm looking at it here on film, right, this is why we go through and grade every play, look at every play, because when you look at it on the broadcast, it's not always the same as what you see in the film room. And then last one here, just a quick one. We're going to see Tua dropping back. We're going to see Tua hitting Waddle for a solid gain here. So, hey, it must be a great play, right? 20-yard catch, right? A little bit of run after catch there. But what I want you to look at is Austin Jackson on this one. So Austin Jackson ends up, it's a slide rate protection, so he doesn't have to worry about his inside. So he's kicking out here nice and wide outside of Waller, but he ends up getting bull rushed directly into Tua, ends up knocking down Tua. This continues to be an issue for Austin Jackson in pass protection. This is the reason they need to protect him on the right side with their slide protections, their chips, their tight end staying in, stuff like that. Is big of a benefit as Austin Jackson is in the run game. He is, a similar liability to Borum in the pass game. Not a perfect prospect by any means, but, just wanted to highlight that as well as Austin Jackson played, he is still the same player that he was before, that he's going to have some issues in pass protection, and the Dolphins need to continue to cover that up. But overall, he had a good game, and looking forward to what he can do as we continue through this season. All right, so that wraps up the film review for this week. The Dolphins are 5-7 now, going on to the Jets next week. I expect another good performance from the offensive line there. But then after that, we're going to find out how much progress this offensive line has really made. But for this week, best grade of the season, and really encouraged about the type of stuff that it opens up as we move forward into the rest of the season. So, as always, appreciate you guys watching. Leave some comments below. Come check us out on Wednesday on Focused on Fins. Come check us out on Scouting the Fins as well, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you. Chase, and back over to Achane again. I believe he's got a first down.
Make up for a lot of mistakes.
1st and 10 after an 11-yard pass play to Achane.